Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back. This is going to be part 4 of our environment prop design series. Now, I'm actually not home this week. I'm visiting family out of town, so I don't have the usual background in the back, but still got all my shit up here. So we're going to keep going, and in this part, I'm actually going to focus more on the interior part. I know last week we were covering mostly the exterior shot, but here on this part, I'm going to focus more on how I built out my interior scene. So yeah, let's get started. Super excited. All right, so this was the block out that I had for my interior shot, and so we decided that it'd be better if we combined these two rooms into one room. So if you guys remember, I had two different shots up here. This was one of the back rooms, and then this was another room. So in order to make the most out of this piece in a very efficient way, we decided that we're just gonna have one environment. I'm gonna remove two of these stoves away, and I'm gonna put two of these mixers next to it, and then just gonna show this one area where everything is happening. Now, usually what I do is that I'll just go to the same file and just kind of just start deleting stuff, start adding more stuff, start manipulating this. But then in this case, I actually made a fresh new file, Blender file. One, because so that I can go back and show you guys the previous and then the after. Two, also because in a way, you just start fresh to some extent, right? You're not spending time deleting stuff. Instead, you just pick what you need from one file, go to a different file, copy paste it. So this right here was my final file. Now, obviously, the exterior, I don't really give a shit about what the exterior looks like because now we're mostly going to focus on the interior part. So I did have the exterior building out here initially just to kind of make sure it matches the size of what the bakery looks like the capacity inside as well. And then I just used a bunch of these these walls made of rocks so that I get that nice, rock texture. So let's start off with the walls first. So how did I make these walls up here? And it was actually really simple. Shift A, mesh, and I used a landscape. And on your landscape, go to your presets and just go to cliff right here. Look at that. Look at all that free detail, right? So I just used this for all the walls. Scaled it up, rotate it a little bit if you want to. I just went ahead and kind of just placed it around so that instead of having a flat plane, we actually have some sort of detail for the walls because this is inside a rock structure. And the way you bend it, you can use a modifier on this, a simple deform modifier. But before you do that, you want to hit Control A and just click on all transforms and then go to your modifiers, add modifier. We're just gonna do simple deform. And so with this, you can go to bend up here. Depending on which axis you're bending it, it'll bend. Set origin to geometry. There you go. Let's try again. There you go. Yeah, so now it's kind of doing that thing. Go to x-axis. It's bending this way, right? Y-axis. So that's what I use to kind of get that, curved part on top. I bent it on the x-axis like that. And then I went ahead and rotated it. And then kind of just stretched it out like that. Rotated it one more time. Just so that there's something, right? Something on the top part. Let's bring that up here. Cool. So that's literally what I did for all the walls. I just made one good looking piece and just copy pasted it. I'm fuck it, man. Who the fuck cares? Just put it. Let's actually look at these openings, these windows. So the way I created these windows, I used a Boolean on this. So let's actually go back and bring back that cliff that I made, right? So for example, let's say if I want to cut through here. So a really good way, an easy way of doing it, you just grab not a plane, grab a cube, go to my edit mode, and I'm going to add some loop cuts. So like this, go to proportional editing, press G, and kind of pull this up. Now, if you want a more curvy look, you can add more loop cuts, or you can also bevel. Click these two right here, Control B, and just kind of do that kind of thing. So yeah, you get the idea, right? Damn, it's windy outside, you guys. I almost died. And then if you go to edit, preferences. Did I say that right? I don't even know. We'll go to add-ons and click on bool tool. So it comes with Blender, and you click on the opening of the window, whatever. Click on the wall, hit Control number pad minus, and there you go. You got a live Boolean. So when I move this around, it's just gonna cut through it. So this was like a really easy way to get that kind of opening up here, and it worked so well. I wanted to give it a little bit of more thickness. You see how like it's kind of like broken and it has a little bit of thickness up here. To do that, I actually went back to the plane up here, the landscape mesh, and I added a solidify modifier. Now you got to be careful with the solidify, because if you use it a little bit much, it's gonna like break your mesh and then it's gonna be a mess. So yeah, just like a little bit, just so that I have some sort of thickness. But you see how like it's fucking it up on this side, so you just got to be a little bit careful with it. So yeah, so that's how I made that window. And since it's an organic structure, it's an organic opening, it works perfectly in our case. All right, let me just copy the texture and see what it looks like just for the sake of it. Control L, link materials. You know what? I should turn on my screencast. I always forget to turn them on. Like I have this stupid... Oh, never mind. It's not working. Okay. So right now when you put a landscape mesh and you put a texture on it, it's not going to show anything. It's because it's not UV unwrapped yet. So to do that, you click on it, hit tab, press A, press U. I like doing cube projection. It works pretty good for me. Look at that. It looks beautiful. This texture up here, remember in a previous video, I went over how you can like make Kitbash sets, and I showed you a texture that I created in that. I use that exact same texture for this. So essentially it's just this right here, all of this. This is a rock texture. And then all of this is a sand texture, right? Just the basic stuff. You got the albedo, ambient occlusion, going through a multiply node, and then you don't even need all this, right? You don't even need an ambient occlusion, Just have an albedo or diffuse, have a normal map, and have a roughness map. Same thing for the sand, have an albedo, roughness, normal, right? We have two BSDF shaders, and now we got to mix these two. And so the way I mixed them, I had a color ramp, and then I had an image of a grunge texture. So if you just go to Google or pexels.com, whatever, something like this, right? And like the black and white parts are kind of like controlling the mix between the two textures. So if I like move this color ramp left and right, it's gonna like affect how much of the sand is shown and how much of the rock is shown. So for example, if I move this all the way, there you go. So like right now, there isn't much happening, right? So we got only sand right now, with like a little bit of of the rock showing. But if you bring this closer, now only the rock is showing. So you have kind of like play around with this a little bit, see which one works the best, honestly. So that's how I did the walls. And I think and honestly, like you see the stuff that's happening up here, like who cares? Like don't worry about it, right? Because that's if it's not gonna be in your camera frame, don't worry about it, right? There's no point in like spending time fixing this. Let's go in here now. Let's look at my camera angle actually. And I'm actually gonna hide all these walls right now. If you click on them, press H. So if you recall on the two sketches that I had done, actually let me just pull up those sketches, that way we remember. Okay, so I had this sketch right here, and then I had this sketch, right? So essentially I have this environment, and then I'm gonna replace these two stoves with like the two mixers up here. We're gonna move one table on the left. That's pretty much it. And I kind of like just experimented with it to see, which worked better, which setting, which layout worked better. So I pretty much wanted to have like this part in action, like this. I wanted this to be like the main focal point, and then everything else around just like supporting elements, right? Just to kind of show the busyness of this area. And like each person up here has a role, right? Like this guy up here, he's getting the bread out. This dude up here is handing him more bread. And this guy's powering up these mixers. He's putting some jewels in here so that he can like start them. This dude up here, he's like just, prepping those raw doughs. He also has a measuring thing up here just to measure them, because we want to make sure they're all consistent in size. And then this guy up here is kind of like, everything up here is cooked, and he's kind of like prepping them to give it to this guy who can then sell it. And there's another dude up here. Now, initially on my 3D render, I did not have, so you see up here, these hanging elements. These I did not have in my first few renders. This is actually, I added this after getting feedback, because what was happening without these, it was very hard to get a sense of perspective. So let me show you what my work in progress on the renders looked like. So initially this was like the first pass, right? So what I had, I just had this thing up here. I had the, the sand texture and the rock texture here, some of the same elements where I just copied from the block out, right? And then even up here, and then this was kind of like my first paint over pass on it. And then when I submitted this, I got feedback that, hey, everything's looking good. But the issue with this image right now is that there's a lot going on, right? Like we need to figure out a way to have our focus only up here. And I'll go over that paint over process later. But you know, like I just want to show you like those hanging wires. I added them like after the fact, and that's the file. So that's why it won't be here in the first few renders. Just thought I'd share that. Now the way I make these wires, there's a really cool way you can do that. You know, wire as in like these are supposed to be threads, my bad. So anytime you want to make like wires slash thread slash something that's like, you know, hanging or whatever, a quick way to do this is if you hit, just have 2 cubes, get 1 cube here, get another cube here, right? And then I'm gonna click on this cube and this cube, hit Shift A, and then go to curve, click on knots, and click on catenary. So it creates this curve that's essentially just connected to the origins of these two meshes, which in my case is a cube. And then so you got a little option box up here as well. A is like the length, like how much do you want it to hang, right? So you can play around with that. Bevel radius, this is the one where you can like increase the thickness of the rope slash wires of your curve, whatever it is. And then there's also an extrude option. I don't really use this extrude option. It just like, you know, does this kind of thing. It flattens it out a little bit, which may or may not be helpful depending on what you're doing. You know, you get this kind of thing as well. And if you click away from this, from your model, from your curve, that box goes away. So you got to be a little bit careful. And it happened to me right now, like unintentionally. Right? And when you make a new curve, it'll have those same settings from the previous curve. I didn't really play around with the extrusion value. All I did was just like increase the bevel radius, and depending on how much I wanted to hang, I increased the A value. And that's pretty much it. And so that's how I like, you know, made those hanging wires up here. It's pretty easy. And then from here, you know, just like play around with it, maybe like make it smaller, bring it up. And essentially what I was trying to do is that I wanted to use it as a way to have some sort of, you know, framing of my, you know, my shot, right? Like having these wires kind of like being coming out from the foreground into the midground towards the distance. It creates a sense of depth and perspective. So that's how I created those, and I just kind of like copy pasted them and just placed them. They're just like hanging in the air, but who cares? You don't see that in the final shot, so screw that. This cloth up here, how did I make this cloth? I actually watched a YouTube video and just like copied the guy. It was pretty easy. It's actually fun. It was very satisfying. Shift A, let's create a plane, go all the way to 0. I'm just gonna single it out. Let me just raise it up a little bit. Hit tab, right click, subdivide, do it like 40 times. And then I'm gonna come down here and just like select like 2 of these vertices. And go to my data, under vertex group, hit the plus up here, assign. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to like not, these vertices, I don't want them to get affected by the simulation. That will give me the effect that the cloth is hanging. Go out of that. Let's add a physics property. Put that under cloth. We'll go under pin group, select the group, or we can also like go up here under presets and just put it under cotton. Self collisions, turn that on as well. All right, let's see if it works. Cool, there you go. So that's something like that. Just let it play for a little bit. So I'm gonna pause here. I think I like the shape of it like that. I can right click, just do shade smooth. And that's good enough, honestly. I mean, you can add a subdivision modifier if you want like an even more smoother result. To add modifier, let's do a subdivision surface, so you got a more smoother. I didn't really use it because I was like, I'm gonna paint over it anyway, so it's an either or. So if you get rid of it, it's not that big of a difference. But that's how I made those cloths up here, pretty much. The ones that you see hanging up here. Actually, the one that I made right now looks so much better than this right here, because I selected more vertices when I was making these, so it gave me like this more boxy look. And these mats on the floor, I made those in a very similar way as well. I'm gonna raise it up ever so slightly. I think it is pretty high right now to some extent. Tab, right click, subdivide. And I'll just do like 40 again. And this time I won't have any pin groups. I just want this guy to like fall down on the floor. And I'm gonna go up here, select cloth, plate. It's like falls down. And in order for it to interact with the ground, make sure you select the ground and put a collision physics property on it. And then that way it's gonna like hit the ground and then stop. Then you can like right click and hit shade smooth. And when you're happy with your simulation, what you can do, you can hit Control A and do visual geometry to mesh. And I forgot to do it for this guy right here. It's still like animating right now. But let's say if I like him, something like that, right? Control A, visual geometry to mesh. So now like it's not, the animation is done. It's not gonna affect it anymore. So that is how I made those clots. And I did the exact same thing for the one that's on the table as well. I actually have this add-on. It's called the Simple Cloth add-on. And so it comes with like some brushes that you can use to kind of like further manipulate the shape of your cloth. So I think it's right here, like sculpt cloth. And I can like come up here and just like add some more edits to it, manipulate it as much as I like. I honestly don't know what I was doing. And if I'm being honest with you, I just wanted to have like something wrinkly on the table. And so that's what I did. I just took the brush and just like mindlessly, aimlessly, just kind of like did that kind of thing until I got something. So, you know, just play around with it. And, you know, it's cloth. It'll work out. It'll look okay. The clothes for these characters, I made it using Simple Cloth as well. Now this add-on is pretty ass, not gonna lie, because every time I try to use it, my files keep crashing. So I can only use like specific presets. So if I go to up here on my asset browser, this add-on comes with like a library of like assets. So I ended up using this one right here, like a woman's dress. Just click and drag and like bring it up there. And then you want to like roughly place it around your character. And this character up here is just like a simple base mesh that I found online. You can find tons of these for free. It's kind of like roughly place it however I want it to. My boy's swole. And then we're gonna go up here to simply add on, and then I'm gonna click on my dude and do a collision. Then I'm gonna start playing it. Boom, it sticks to his body. Ideally, you want to use a character that's like in a proper T pose, right? His hands are kind of like down like that, his arms. So it's kind of interfering with the simulation. Yeah, I think it's too tight for this dude. But in my case, I'm making like people who are like, you know, industry workers or like, you know, making bread and shit. So it kind of worked in this case. And once you're happy, right click on it, hit Control A, visual geometry to mesh. And then you can further like manipulate the shape of his cloth. If you go to sculpt mode, I just grabbed the grab tool and kind of like just pushed it down a little bit, just like loosen it up, you know. And you know, the more subdivisions you have, the more control you'll have on how you want to make this. And I think I pushed it down like quite a bit actually, like that. Supermodel, he's a supermodel. Look at this guy. And then I also wanted to have some characters with like a half sleeve shirt. So what I did for that was I went back to object mode. Blender might crash. Let's see if it works or not. I hope it works. It was this one right here. Yep, I'll grab it up here, bring it back to 0. Just kind of like roughly place it on him. Cool, hit spacebar. Boom. Got an inner shirt now. Control A, visual geometry to mesh. Go to sculpt mode again. And I want this shirt inside, underneath the, you know, the gown, I guess, whatever you want to call it. Just gonna like roughly just push it in a little bit. So you can always like manipulate it, you know, to some extent. So yeah, that's how I kind of roughly made it. And then for the head part, I used a hood cap up here, and this I'm gonna place it on his big ass head, and it's gonna crash on me. I can feel it. There you go. What did I tell you guys? This stupid ass add-on keeps crashing on me. So essentially, like the cap part, what it did was it would, instead of sticking to the body, it would stick to the head. And then you can kind of use the sculpt mode again and just like manipulate him a little bit more. And then the next thing that I did, that you can actually upload your models into Mixamo and then get like animations out of it. So you can go up here, go to upload character, select your character file. Oh God, where did I save it? Give it a sec. So your character is gonna show up, and then you just hit, you hit next. It's gonna ask you to place a chin, and then the wrists and the elbows are roughly around here. And ideally, you know, like I said, you gotta make sure you have like a free T pose. I think moving forward, I'll probably like get a T-pose of a model instead. The groins are going to be somewhere up here. And then you hit next. And now you wait for a little bit. It can take up to 2 minutes. All right, so he is done, ready to go. And then you can just click next up here. And then your 3D character has been uploaded. Proceed with your... Okay, yeah. Hit next. And now, just go to animations. And look at that. Your dude's up here dancing. Look at this guy. Look, he looks fabulous. Look at this guy. Like he's got the moves, yo. Damn. My boy fabulous. The Riz. Oh, look at his ass, bro. His ass is leaking out of the cloth. Okay, never mind. We're not gonna worry about it. We can paint over it. You want to find a pose that you can use in your scene. So in my case, I used a bartending pose. So like this pose right here, like you can see the character itself is like very proactive and like bending down, picking things up and whatnot. And so when you have like a good base pose like that, then you can actually go to Blender and change your pose, you know, like it comes with like a rig system. So you would just hit download, you know, just download it, do whatever. And then, you know, go back to Blender. So for example, if I import an FBX right now, import FBX, and you want to save it as an FBX. This is like another guy actually. This was a different dude. And so now when I hit play, he's gonna be like out here doing his thing. And then I'm gonna pause it. Maybe I'll pause it up here, right? Maybe that's good enough. For example, go here, select my bones, this bone structure, select everything, press X, delete keyframes. So now like, even if you leave it playing, you have that pose. But if you don't like this pose, let me hide all this shit. So I can click like on my character's bone structure up here, go to this bone up here. No, go to this guy right here and click on in front. And then I can go to object mode, change it to pose mode. And then here I can like select individual bones and kind of like rotate them, do whatever, right? Do whatever I need to do to get a good looking pose. So that's what I pretty much did for all of my dudes up here. Like, you know, like this guy's holding the bread, this dude's like holding the rod. It took me a couple minutes to like actually make it look good and grounded. I even had like pictures of myself doing stuff so that it looks more realistic. And as far as the texturing goes on these guys right here, so this texture right here, it's a cotton texture and then a roughness map of a concrete texture. So this was funny. So pretty much like right here, I just got this texture, this cloth texture from Quixel's Megascans. Let me cancel these for now. So it looked like this, you know, just a simple cloth texture, right? And then I had another BSDF shader, and it was connected to a, like the base color had a roughness map on it for like, I think I got it from like a concrete texture or something. And then what I did was that I had another color ramp up here, and then this, honestly, I don't even think I needed this color ramp. Let me see. Yeah, I didn't even need this color ramp. It was just like, I just put it through a mixed shader node and it just gave me like this really cool result, and I just went with it, honestly. So that was like how I textured the clothes. Yo, the texturing of the stove up here. Let's look at that real quick. Initially in the previous video, I said that I'm going to texture it in 3D Code, but I didn't really find the need to. I just got this like, this mud looking cracked up texture from Quixel, and it honestly did the job. So I just went with it instead of like, you know, taking the time to go to 3D Code, bring it back, import, export, and all that hassle. So I just used that for this guy. And there's like a point light up here with the color orangish up here so that it lights up the stove, showing that there's fire in there. And for the lighting of the whole scene itself, so for my lighting, I actually had an HDRI. And then I had an area light that was kind of like directed in a way where it's showing that it's coming through the window. So for example, so if I had the area light right now, this is what it looks like. This is the light from the HDRI. And then with the area light, it was kind of like hitting some parts of the environment to where like it was coming through from this side right here through the windows where the opening is for the windows. And then so I can like rotate it, kind of like place it wherever I want. Something like that worked pretty well for the most part. And the way I did these windows, I made these inside of 3D Code using a stencil. So you can come up here, kind of make like a little triangle, rectangle. I can't believe I call it a triangle. And then under stencils, I downloaded this image right here from Google. I found like these patterns, these Middle Eastern architect windows. And then we're gonna come up to the cut tool, change it to a rectangle, and just do this. And there you go. That's how I got those windows, and that's it. And then I saved it out as an FBX and put it up in my scene. It was probably like this thin. Worked pretty good. So the texture of this pot up here, I found an image of like this rusted metal of some sort. I just had the same image going through base color and then roughness, and then I had a bump node. The bump wasn't really doing anything, honestly. That's what I had for this. And then on these guys up here, these are made of metal. I just had a base color and a metallic all the way up. And under roughness, I had this image right here. So it was giving me like this nice little, texture where certain parts were shiny, certain parts were not shiny. If I cut it, it's just gonna be like, super shiny like this. You know what I mean? What I had up here, I gotta recycle a lot of my textures, you guys. I use that same texture on these hanging pans, hanging pots. Like they all have that same metal texture. Worked pretty well, honestly. And the texture for the bread itself, I just took a picture of a bread, pretty much. Let me go to my shader editor, kind of show you. UV editor, my bad. There was like, a simple bread texture up here of some sort. And so I kind of just like wrapped that around the model. Once again, just, put it on base color. Use that same on a roughness node as well. And then a bump node. With some mapping nodes up here. Just kind of like scale it up and down. For example, where is it? Right, so if you look at it, like it's not perfect, but it's got a little bit of detail on it to some extent, which I thought looked pretty cool. And honestly, I could have probably, I would have been okay without the normal map, honestly, now that I think about it. But it's all right though, because it's gonna be like in the distance like that, right? So it doesn't matter. If I was like super close to the camera, I would have like probably spent some more time trying to figure out a better looking texture, but it doesn't really matter. And then the table up here had just like a simple wooden texture, right? So just like super simple image of like a wood, and it had an albedo, a roughness, and then a normal map kind of going through it. Very basic texturing, man. Nothing crazy. Let's look at these bags of flour. What did they have? Oh, I just gave it the same texture as the cloth. And once again, it's like in the distance, we're not gonna see it a whole lot, so just need something up there for the light to react. These windows have the same texture as like the floor, and actually like the texture of the floor is different from the walls. So for the floor, what I did was, it's the same. I think I only had a sand texture on the floor because it was getting a little bit too noisy. So for example, it was this texture right here. This is the texture that I got from 3D Code. From 3D Code, you can download textures as well. So I just ended up using the same texture for the floor as well. Worked out pretty good. Pretty okay. This was the roughness. And then this was the normal. And then the ground. Oh, actually, you know what? The normal and it's ambient occlusion and normal. So these are for like a different texture, and I guess I just forgot to change it. Oh well, it still got the job done. And this right here, I don't know why I had this. This is just like an alpha of just like some dirt on the ground. It wasn't really adding much in the final painting, but essentially what it was just like an image like that. And then there was like a roughness map, normal map, and then there was an opacity map. And the opacity map was pretty much like the white. I think the white part are the parts that are going to be shown of the texture, and the black part are going to be hidden in the texture. So if I remove the opacity node, it looks something like this, right? It's like a, just an opaque texture. But if I bring it back, and then you can use it, to scatter it around. But it wasn't really doing much, so it was just a subtle effect for the most part. Yeah, I think that was it, you guys. Like as far as the texture, like most of my time was spent just kind of like figuring out my composition and placing my camera in such a way where, I get like a good a good read. Like this guy, that this stuff up here, that kind of composition where it's like going round and round in circles, where you're just going up here. So this was pretty much it, I want to say, for the Blender part. I don't think I'm missing anything. Yeah, like I said, like very simple. Like I use Blender in such a way where it's simple. I don't do anything complex texturing or anything, just using the basic tools, building a scene, and then calling it a day. And I know that in Photoshop I'm going to be going over, painting over it, so the bulk of my time kind of goes to Photoshop. I did use a like a depth of field thing on the camera where it says focus object. So I can click on this eyedropper tool and click my object of focus. If I click this, then these guys become ever so slightly blurred out. But I picked out the stove up here, and yeah, it blurred out everything else just a little bit. But I usually blur it out even more in Photoshop, and that's where most of the blurring happened. So let's real quick look at my render settings. So I use cycles, and I bring down my noise threshold to 0.1, make sure it's denoise, and my samples to 200. I think by default it's like 4096. You don't need that many samples. You're gonna be waiting forever for your render. And then I go down here, I'll check fast GI approximation. I'll also go hit transparent. That way I don't get that gray color in the back. It's just a transparent background, and I can easily just replace it with an image. Go to performance, make sure you hit persistent data. And then my canvas size is usually, my render size is usually, where did it go? 4000 by 2000 pixels. And and then I render it. And then as for my render passes, I get those using Eevee. So I will usually get an environment pass. That way I can make a selection of all the, of all the stuff up here. And then this is like stuff in the background pretty much. And let me actually hit Alt H. Yeah. So I will use environment. I use ambient occlusion. Actually, in this project, I did not use ambient occlusion. I forgot about it. Shadow, not really. Transparent, no. Just go down the list until you see something interesting. Spec light could have been helpful, honestly, now that I think about it. Color, volume light, no. Bloom, yes, I use bloom up here. And then to save these, I just do a viewport render image. And once it renders out, I just go to image and then save. So we got bloom up here, and then normal can be helpful sometimes in making specific selections, specific parts of the color. So you can use a normal map as well. And then mist, as long as your mist pass reads well, it means you're on the right track. And you can actually like control your mist strength up here, your start and depth. Kind of like, play around with it. Make sure you get a good read. That way you can select stuff on the foreground, midground, background. And then I also get a clown pass using Workbench. I'll put it on flat, random, and yeah, you get these like colorful stuff. And you can render this out. So those are my render passes. So I'm going to give you guys a little spoiler alert for next week's video, but pretty much I'm going to show you guys how I went from a 3D render like this to a final painting. Like I had a really good time painting this. It was a lot of fun, a lot of discoveries. And so I want to spend like an entire video explaining this process. So yeah, definitely be on the lookout for that. So this was the Blender scene building part of this. In the next video, I'm going to go over the paint over process, and I'm also going to go over how you can like arrange everything, all these pieces that you created, and build like a good portfolio piece out of it, right? Because you want to make sure you have some sketches, some callouts, and then some final paintings. So I'm going to cover that part as well and show you like how I did it. Cool. So that should be all for today. I mean, if you made it this far, definitely subscribe, and I will see you guys next week.